Hi everyone, welcome to section 3 of our FastAPI series. If you're new here, be sure to check out the section 1 and actually section 2. We're building up step by step a full FastAPI API. And today we're taking a break from coding to dive into the theory behind the HTTP methods. These are the core of how APIs work, and understanding them will make you a FastAPI pro. So let's get into it. Okay, so to understand it as best as possible in the best way, we have to ask ourselves a few questions. So as you see here in the first section in this course, we coded a FastAPI. We created an API using the FastAPI framework in the Python programming language, and we actually here used a get function, which is one of the HTTP methods in the protocols of internet. Okay, so we used get to just create a simple hello world API, and in the next section, in the section 2, we have created another API, as always using the FastAPI framework, and we have created a tiny pretended database, in-memory database, that stores a few name of fruits. And using the get parameter, we actually created a function, or it's better to say we created an endpoint to fetch all of the items inside our pretended database, and we have a little simple error handling that we have created using this condition. And actually, we added a feature to just select an item that we want based on the index that the item had in the database. And using it, we just return the exact item inside our pretended tiny database, in-memory database. And right now, if we want to go further, I just decided to talk about the HTTP methods. And I actually told the reason why I decided to talk about the HTTP methods, and I think it will be super helpful for you if you don't know anything about it. So, but just for a flashback, a quick flashback, I just went to the first section code, and like you see here, we used get, and in the section 2, we just used an get as well. And these are get is one of the HTTP methods that we use daily, and it's very super important to understand all the HTTP methods out there, not just the get. And if you want to go much further and use another HTTP methods, it's better to understand them as best as possible. So here for the third section, I have created a README file and actually talked about them very deeply, and I think it's going to be super helpful. So the first question that we have to ask from ourselves is, what are the HTTP methods? Actually, guys, what are these? Okay, so here I can demonstrate to you so much better. We have a question, and that is, what are the HTTP methods? So like you see here, the HTTP methods are commands you use to interact with a web server or API. Okay, think of them as the verbs of the internet. Each one tells the server what you want to do. Okay, like what? There is a very important tip. Like, get me some data, or add this for me. FastAPI, for example, in our example, uses these methods to define what your endpoints can do. And in this session, we'll explore the most common ones. For example, get HTTP method, post HTTP method, put HTTP method, and delete. Okay, so this time we have no code to write and just the ideas behind them. Okay, so like you see here, we have the big 4 HTTP methods. The first one is get, that we used it in the first and second sections, and it just used for retrieving the data And here's another question, what actually it does. And if you actually want to know what this does, we can see here that get is all about fetching information. It's like walking into a library and asking, can I see this book? And the server actually hands you the data without changing anything. Okay, so the server hands you the data without changing anything. It just hands you the data if you ask for it, and you have the permission to ask for it. Okay, so here we have another question, and that is when to use it. We have to use the get when you want to read something like a list of items, a user profile, or a single record. Okay, so the key points is it's safe, nothing gets modified, it's repeatable, and we can calling it over and over and gives us the same result unless the data changes on the server. Okay, so here's an example idea that you can actually read it if you want. The second HTTP method that we want to talk about is the post, that used to create data. Here's the question, what it does. Post is for sending new stuff to the server. It's like dropping off a packet, okay, and you're adding something new to the system. Okay, so when you use this HTTP method, you are going to changing something in our server. Okay, you're going to changing something, and when to use it, we use the post HTTP method when you're creating something like adding a new user. Okay, so imagine that you have an application and you want to create a login or a sign up page for it. Okay, so in the server side, you have to send the request of your user that is going to interact with your application. You have to send the user's request with the post HTTP method to tell the server that this information, that this request is going to change something in our database, to change something inside our server. Okay, so we have to use this HTTP method in these scenarios. Okay, these are some key points and example that I actually suggest you to read all of them to understanding as best way as possible. And the third HTTP method is actually the put that used to updating an existing data. Okay, so using the post, you're going to modify the server to create or add something new to it. Okay, but using the put HTTP method, you're just going to modify the server to updating an existing data on the server, not adding anything new. Okay, so this is all about the permissions that you have to handle on the server side of your system, of your application, and manage which user on each endpoint can use which HTTP method to have the specific permissions to do something on the server. Okay, so using the put, actually we can updating something that's already there. It's like saying, hey, replace this old information with my new version. Okay, so when to use it, we are going to use the put when you want to modify an existing resources. Okay, like changing a user's email or updating a product price. Okay, and these are the key points and example ideas. If you want, you can read. I'm not going to waste our time on it because everyone can read it, and I don't see any reason to just read from them to you and waste your time. We want to learn FastAPI in less time as best as possible. Okay, so the fourth HTTP method that we're going to use in this course, in this entire course, is the delete HTTP method that used to removing data. It actually, like the previous HTTP methods, gonna modify information on our database, on our server, and we have to pay too much attention to use it because it's gonna delete an existing data from our server or from our database, and it used when we want to remove a data or actually remove an existing data on our server, on our database, and this could be very dangerous, so we have to use it carefully. And this is the question, what it does. So actually delete is actually for getting rid of stuff. It's just like telling the server, I don't need this anymore, so take it away. And it will take it away. Guys, this is very simple. Want to use it? We have to use the delete when you want to remove something like deleting a user account or clearing an item from a list or from our database. So that's all, and these are the key points in the example ideas. And this is a very interesting question, that why this matters for FastAPI. For us as Python developers who want to work with FastAPI framework, why HTTP methods matters for us. So these are the reasons, and this is the wrapping up. We use get for reading data from our server, we're using post for adding new data to the server, and we're using put to updating an existing data on our server, and we use delete for removing an existing data on our server. And actually this is all we want, guys. So very interesting, doesn't it?